Again, there's going to be trial and error on this, but you're going to see somebody whose content is performing really well. And there is going to be a temptation to just make it in their style. So you're going to want to set up your camera. You're going to get close to the camera. You're going to talk in their cadence. But if it's not authentic to who you are, you're not going to be able to keep that up. And you're not going to maintain your audience. So it's not necessarily about some specific tip or trick. It's really about finding your own voice.
And welcome back to another episode of Med Creator 101. I'm Mimi Banks, the founder and CEO of MB Social, and I'm here, as always, with the inspiring, incredible Med Creator, board-certified dermatologist, Dr. Dustin Portela.
Hello, Mimi. Glad to be back.
And glad to see you, as always. So I like this little tradition that we've started, which is really getting to know you. And this time, I wanted to talk about your eating habits. How do you feel about that?
Oh, we can do it.
Okay, great. So ketchup or mustard?
I have become more of a mustard fan as I've got older. I used to hate it when I was younger, but, a good spicy mustard. Let's go with that.
What about Dijon? What about a good French's?
The more exotic types of mustard, not just your regular yellow mustard.
What about mayonnaise? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like mayonnaise on a sandwich. And we have a little tradition in Idaho that I think needs to get all over the United States. And that is of something called fry sauce. And fry sauce is equal parts ketchup and mayonnaise, and it is the superior French fry dip over ketchup.
Isn't that Thousand Island?
It's a little different than Thousand Island.
What's the difference with Thousand Island?
There's some different spices in Thousand Island. I don't know exactly what it is, but straight up fry sauce is where it's at.
White or wheat bread?
Ooh, I know wheat bread's supposed to be healthier for you, but I'm still a white bread guy.
There's nothing like Wonder Bread. And I would say toast or a bagel.
Bagel.
And how do you take your bagel?
I don't like the everything bagel. I like just a plain bagel or like a blueberry bagel or some type of fruit bagel with cream cheese. Lots of cream cheese.
A fruit bagel? Interesting. You're definitely not from New York. There's nothing like a New York, like a sesame, big, doughy bagel. They just don't make them like that in California. We're constantly trying.
And maybe that's why my preference is just a basic bagel loaded up with cream cheese, because I haven't had a real New York bagel.
Next time we're in New York together, we're definitely going to get bagels.
Sounds great.
Okay, so not really at all related to things that you eat, but definitely something of consumption. I wanted to talk about your social media specifically today. You've built a pretty impressive following across social, from Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. And remember when I found your WhatsApp channel?
Oh, yeah.
Still have it on my phone. We know that building a following is not easy. And the thought of starting a social community from scratch can be pretty daunting and overwhelming. And as you and I both know, it's more than just posting. It takes thought and, dare I say, this overused word, but some strategy. We can just call it a plan. And content that educates, inspires, and entertains. What I want to talk about today, if you agree, is if you were to start from scratch, where would you start?
This is a good question, because this is essentially where so many people are at that want to get into social media. And there's a number of different things to consider, but it really doesn't have to be complicated. I think that you need to understand first, why you want to get on social media. What's your mindset behind that? We have talked on other episodes about how my initial goal was to just bring people into my practice. And I wanted to create the type of content that would just get out locally. And then it became, much bigger as TikTok started to grow. And then I kind of shifted focus that I could educate through social media to wider audiences who might not be able to come see me as a doctor, but that could benefit in their health or their skincare by listening to things that I could share. And so it started with a local focus and went to more just a national or international education focus. But never at any point in the early days was the goal to get partnerships or to turn that into an income stream. And I've discussed this with many people who wanted to get into social media, who approached it as trying to monetize as quickly as possible. And without fail, they've all burned out because they didn't go into it with a focus on education or with a focus on bringing people in. Maybe you have a unique procedure that you offer in your clinic, whether that's, a special type of physical therapy or a cosmetic procedure, or you are the best person at dealing with earaches or whatever it is. If you have something unique to offer and you want people to learn from you or to come and see you, that can be the mindset that you go into social media with.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's about having the right intentions. And if the intentions is the short game, which is just getting money or getting paid, oftentimes that is not the recipe for success.
So once you do that, there's several different things you can look at. A little bit of equipment is important. And we talked about that on another episode, where you want a decent microphone, maybe a ring light. And that's a great place to start with just your phone. Plenty of editing tools you can use on your phone. And then you have to decide where you're going to post content at and who you're going to be speaking to. And those kind of go hand in hand in my mind, because if you are a dermatologist and you're primarily wanting to talk to teenagers with acne, then you're going to want to be on the platform or platforms that tend to skew to a younger audience. Now, I would say that it's better to talk to the parents of the teenagers, because most teenagers aren't going to go out and make those purchases for themselves. So give yourself a little bit of time to think about who you want to speak to. What does that audience member look like? And so in my case, I like to think that I am speaking to middle-aged women who have teenagers or younger children in the home. They care about their appearance and they want to do skincare. They want their kids to take care of their acne. They make a lot of the financial decisions in the household. They control the pocketbook. And so you want to speak to somebody that is interested in what you would have to share on the platform that they tend to spend time on, and that they have the money to purchase something if you are indeed talking about products, or you may have a course or something that you want to sell them. Because if you want to sell something to teenagers, you're going to have a pretty limited audience. There's plenty of teenagers that will listen, but how many of them can then go and make a purchase based on your recommendations? That's going to really limit your scope.
Though we can talk about another episode about the 13-year-olds at Sephora.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic, but they're still grabbing their parents to go into Sephora.
That's true. But I think that what you said is super interesting, and that there's a lot there. So even if you have the tools, and I have a microphone, I have a phone, I have a ring light, I think what's really important is that you said is thinking about who you're speaking to and where they are. For example, for me, I want to keep relevant as a social media agency. I don't want to spam people, but I want to stay top of mind, especially in this day and age where I meet with so many people remotely. I live in California. I don't see a lot of my New York people. So I choose LinkedIn because that's my target audience. That's how I stay top of mind. That's how I share content. That's how I'm able to show what we've been up to, talk about our wins, because I know my target audience is there. I don't think that they're going to care about anything that I do on social on Instagram because they want to know about me personally there. And so for me, that's really helped craft my business to business strategy, because my goal there is staying top of mind and generating new business. And I have to say that that strategy has worked tremendously, because people will say, oh, I've seen you on LinkedIn. Oh, I've seen your updates. And they actually refer back to it. So that lets me know, and that gives me the feedback that it's working. But if we're talking broad social media now, so you're starting from scratch and you say again, okay, maybe you're going back to want to educate. You want to talk to women who have teenage daughters. What do I do? What platforms would you choose? How many? I like to say that quality over quantity, because it could be very overwhelming to start everything. But literally, if you had no social media, but you want to educate to this target audience that you defined, where would you go?
I highly recommend that people just start on one platform. And when you create content, you can save that on your computer so that it's there and you someday could go post it on another platform. But in my case, the predominant audience of middle-aged women, like older millennial women, are going to be on Instagram. And so that is a great place for me, if I were starting over, to focus primarily on Instagram. Now, if you want to speak to a slightly younger audience, and these are all generalizations, of course, because there's a wide range of ages on all social media platforms, but TikTok is going to skew a little bit younger. Snapchat is going to skew a little bit younger. If you're an orthopedic surgeon and you want to educate people on knee pain and potentially find people that would come and have, joint injections or knee replacement, you're probably going to want to be on Facebook, because that demographic tends to skew a little bit older. You don't want to talk about knee pain on Snapchat, for example, because you're going to miss your target audience. So in my example, if I were starting over, I would focus primarily on Instagram. And then the next place that I would go would probably be TikTok.
And so once you, let's say you've chosen those platforms, you would start on Instagram with an aspiration to grow towards TikTok.
So I would create the content for Instagram, develop my strategy there, learn to master that platform. And all the while, I'll be saving the content that I create on my phone or on my computer so that when I'm ready to move on to a new platform, I already have a whole backlog of content that I could post that I've already put the work in for.
You mentioned a few very important things. So once you choose a platform, so if you're choosing Instagram, how long does it take, or how does someone figure out all the ins and outs and best practices of a platform? And how do you stay up to date? There are so many updates. There are best practices. There are system updates. How do you figure it out?
It is ever changing. So you do have to approach this knowing that you're going to put significant time into it and it's going to take away time from other things. So if you are really into some certain hobby, it might cut into that time. If you have a family, you have to be mindful of the time that it's going to take from that. But if you want to grow on a platform and you want to develop a presence online, you will have to put time into it. Now, for Instagram, I tend to follow a handful of accounts that is their niche, is they're talking to people who want to grow on Instagram. And they're the ones that are reading everything that Meta puts out on updates to the algorithm, on changes that Meta is making, what they want to focus on new tools that they introduce that you can use. Because generally, if a platform introduces a new tool for their content creators to use, they will reward you for using it because they're going to prioritize that in the algorithm. And then you're going to just have to throw some things at the wall when you create content and see what works well. And we talked about analytics and metrics on a previous episode. And when you see that something outperforms your usual content, if you're normally getting 50 to 100 views on something and you have a piece of content and you're just beginning that gets 250 or 300 views, you need to go back and see, why did this content outperform my other content? And in what ways can I replicate that? So you have to be willing to teach yourself. And there's a lot of great people you can learn from directly on Instagram. You don't need to go and buy every Instagram guru's course and hacks and hooks and hashtags and all of these things. There's tons of free resources. This podcast is a free resource. And you just have to be able to put some time in and then know that you're going to have to do some reps and that you'll get better, but you got to be patient with it.
So that's great advice. First and foremost, start following people who are professionals in the field whose goal is to educate. So that's amazing. And then they will also be the ones that go to that know all the updates. And then you'll start seeing everybody talking about when Reels came out, when the broadcast channels came out, everybody starts talking about it. And then you start following people to see what good looks like, who's doing it, how are they doing it? And you'll start to ask yourself these questions of, why is someone doing it this way? Another person's doing it this way. And you can start to develop your point of view of what you prefer.
Again, there's going to be trial and error on this, but you're going to see somebody whose content is performing really well. And there is going to be a temptation to just make it in their style. So you're going to want to set up your camera. You're going to get close to the camera. You're going to talk in their cadence. But if it's not authentic to who you are, you're not going to be able to keep that up. And you're not going to maintain your audience. So it's not necessarily about some specific tip or trick. It's really about finding your own voice, learning a little bit how to tell stories, how to capture attention, get people to stop scrolling. But you have to be authentic to yourself. And there's no true hack that somebody's going to give you that you're going to mimic their style and you're going to have every video go viral.
That's very true. I think that what you'll learn from people is how to use it. So like a user's manual, a guide to posting, to hashtags, to the number of hashtags people think, or some people have times of day or the number of posts a week or those kind of tactical tips. But it's true. Some people practice in front of the mirror. Some people just keep filming and recording and watching themselves and to see how they perform, to see their filler words, to see what they like, or just to really see, to your point, what performs well. What do people respond to or what resonates with the audience? So if we're going to content, and I know we've talked about content on other episodes, but I want to think about content here because what I love about your content specifically and what I, really admire is how it's always different. And I think the other part that could be intimidating or overwhelming is looking at someone's feed or just in general saying, okay, I want to start a new social. how would you come up with content ideas? So going back, so now you're saying, all right, I'm starting, I want to educate, I want to talk to middle-aged women with teenagers. Maybe most of them have acne. I'm going to start on Instagram. Let me think about how I'm going to create content. Where should somebody start?
There's a couple of tools that I think can be really helpful here. One is you can look at other people that create the same or similar types of content that you would and see what kinds of questions they're addressing. What are the pain points or the problems that they are trying to solve? And that's kind of a general thing you can do is think about pain points or benefits that your audience is looking to solve and speak to those. That's a very easy thing that will catch people's attention quickly if you introduce it in the first few seconds of a video. So see what other people are doing. You can look at hashtags that would be related to your content, genre, whether that's hashtag acne, hashtag hormonal acne, and you can see what kind of questions people are asking, what kind of content they're creating. There's a specific tool on TikTok called Creator Search Insights, and this will tell you what your followers are actually asking. It gives you an idea of what they're searching for on the platform, and then you can create content that will directly answer questions that your followers are having, that they have searched for. And so that's a very robust tool inside of TikTok is the Creator Search Insights. You can go to AI tools like ChatGPT. And if your niche is physical therapy for back pain, you could ask it to create a list of topics that consumers might be asking about physical therapy or about overcoming back pain. And it'll give you a lot of different ways that you could address that. So use free tools like the free version of ChatGPT to come up with a whole list of content ideas. And then you'll want to create those in bite-sized, short-ish videos that will address one specific question at a time.
That's actually important also because specifically in the medical field, there could be a lot of complex answers that you would have to a given pain point or a benefit of something. And social media attention span is 3 seconds. So how can you simplify it or share one piece or one part of the topic that interests you, or break it up into several parts so then that can be a series of content too?
Yeah, keep it simple, bite-sized, get people to want to subscribe so that they want to come back and see what else are you going to say on this topic.
Right. People are coming to you for your expertise, your training, your knowledge in your subject matter. And the other thing that is also real is the concept of writer's block. You get stumped, you don't know what to post. You go to ChatGPT, you go somewhere and you feel like, I've seen it all, or I don't want to post that today. My vote is to say, don't post for the sake of posting.
I would agree with that. It's going to be better to do less frequent but high quality posts than low quality posts that are going to happen every day or multiple times a day, because ultimately the algorithm is going to learn. Obviously, I think it's better to post as frequently as you can with good quality. However, if you post twice a week and the algorithm knows every time you post, tens of thousands of people are very interested in this content, versus if you post every day and you're getting very little engagement on those posts, you're going to have to, work really hard to get out of that. And the algorithm's just going to recognize that, hey, this person's content just doesn't resonate with very many people.
Doesn't work. And what's interesting that you say that is that yesterday, someone's post popped into my feed on Instagram, and the person was like, hey, Instagram, I'm back. I haven't been here for a while, but guess what? I got married. And I went back to look, and I don't think he'd posted in 18 months. I don't know this person well. In fact, I think I met him at a dinner party once when I lived in New York. So pre-2020, maybe 2018. And so it was super interesting to me why I got served that content, or the algorithm suggested that I might care, maybe because I had wedding related content on my feed, but I thought that was something that was super interesting. But it's that exact reason is maybe other people were engaging with that content. So the algorithm or Instagram says to the wider net of people that are following, hey, other people find this content compelling. We think you will too.
Exactly. The algorithms are just trying to mimic human behavior as close as they can. And, better content that you create, it's not about some specific hack. It's really just coming down to human psychology.
True. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about monetization. I know it's a very important part of social today, and it's not necessarily always about brand partnerships either. I think that there are some interesting ways in which you can still monetize your platform as your following begins to grow and as you see, as we talked about, your metrics or your analytics begin to share some really powerful insights. And so what would you prioritize in terms of if someone wanted to monetize their following or they wanted to monetize their platform? I guess for you, if again, going back to the starting from scratch, where would you start?
There's a couple things. It's going to take a while for brand partnerships to come in. That will come as a result of success that you experience otherwise. But early on, there's many free or very low cost tools where you could start to create a simple email list, and you could include that in your LinkedIn bio and give people the opportunity to sign up for your email list. This is an extra step that people are taking because they trust you. And so it tells you a lot about that specific follower. And then make effort to send out, a monthly or a weekly email about one specific topic. And the more free value that you provide, then the time will come when you want to make a recommendation. You may choose to include an affiliate link where you get a small commission off of a product. But people that have given you their email address have already shown that they have some trust in you, and they're more likely to buy that product based on your recommendation. There's a quote that I've heard from a well-known influencer named Alex Hormozy. He says, give until people ask if they can give you money. So give so much free value until people are begging to buy something from you, whether that's a product recommendation or a ebook that you create around a specific problem or something. Again, it could be low back pain. If you're a back surgeon or a physical therapist, you could create some type of guide on that. Or if you're a dietitian, you create a low glycemic index, healthy eating guide. And these are just very general examples that you could charge $2.99 for and sell that to 100 people. So there's a lot of ways, but start with collecting email addresses. Start on Amazon Associates, where you can include general links on your stories. You get a very small commission from Amazon. But if somebody goes and they buys an ankle brace that you recommended or an acne cream, and they just happen to be checking out with the newest TV at the same time, you actually get a commission on both of those things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they came to Amazon through your link. And so for the next 24 hours, they have a cookie in their browser that all the purchases come from whatever link they most recently came to Amazon from. So there's a little bit of an upside on using Amazon Associates, even though the commissions are small. Depending on the genre that you're in, there's tools like Shop My Shelf, where you can get a wide range of products. The commissions are a little bit higher on Shop My Shelf. And these are just ways where when you build trust with an audience and your audience is willing to purchase your recommendations, you get a small financial reward. And it's important to disclose that you are using affiliate links. That is a requirement from the FTC, that when you are getting a commission for making a recommendation, you disclose that through some type of disclaimer near the link. So just easy ways to monetize initially without putting your metric of success on brands that want to come and pay you.
And I think that that's a great first step also, because you start to see the impact that you have. And that also helps you build up your repertoire or your personal brand story when brands do reach out, or you can see the impact that you're having, that you can drive sales, or that this is the kind of audience that you have, that your audience likes X kinds of products, or your audience responds to X kinds of content.
It gives you a lot of confidence as a creator. If you have 2,000 followers and they're very dedicated followers, and you post moisturizer and you sell 200 of them, that means 10% of your audience went and bought something. And that's a huge percentage. And that tells you that you have developed a lot of trust with your audience, so that if the time comes when you are going to work with a brand, that's a metric that you can take to them and say that you built a lot of trust with your audience.
It makes me think of our friend Christina, who's the founder of Jouer Cosmetics. She has a broadcast channel where she shares a lot of her Amazon finds. Every time she sends anything in that channel, I swear I buy it. And she even has a belt bag that she refers to that she found that looks like very high end, but let's say it was like $19 or $29. She sells it out every single time she posts it because it's of value, because it's functional, because it looks like it's more expensive, because it's from her, all of the things. And she found her niche here of this woman who has incredible taste and an audience wants to look like her, me included. So it's like, if she's suggesting something, I trust her so much that I want to buy it too. Call me a sucker, or just, it's like friend to friend. It's an easier way to share recommendations. And so the good part is that you have a foundation, you have some tips and tricks. And then what Dustin was saying is really to keep up the momentum. And that part, I think, might be the challenging part, is to say, how do I know when I'm doing a good job? And that will be through the analytics. That will be through feedback. That will be through comments. That will be through your views and just starting to get a handle on the channel and understanding the dynamics of how it works. Also, I just really think you should know that it is the long game, that if you want to create something just for the short-term benefits, I know I just said this in the beginning, you will be disappointed at the end that it takes time. And the followers may not come in a month. They may not come in 3 months. It might be 6 months. It might be a year. So it's a slow and steady process.
Yeah. And even for somebody with a large following on many platforms, I have created an educational YouTube channel. I've been in the works on this for 2 to 3 years, and only in the last 6 months did I start to see real progress on that YouTube channel. And so I was consistently posting for 2 years on there with very little return, but I enjoyed the process of education. I knew that with consistency and building trust with my audience, that it would grow when the people found it, when it resonated with the right audience, and as I learned my audience better. So it was something I was willing to be patient on, that I spent money on editors, on different tools for editing, lots of different things. But it was worth it to me to do that because I enjoy the process. And the end goal was not just to get AdSense revenue. It was, I know that people are going to benefit from this content, and I will be consistent until the right people are finding my content.
And you like creating. You have fun when you create. You like telling a story. You like being in front of the camera.
100%.
And so I think that's actually also something to come to terms with, is being in front of the camera.
You have to be willing to put yourself out there, get used to the sound of your own voice, and know that it will find the right audience as long as you're consistent and dedicated to it.
We would love to know if this was helpful or what tips and tricks you use. DM us on Instagram, leave us a comment on this video. We'd love to hear more from you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of MedCreator 101. Today, we talked about starting from scratch as a physician or medical professional content creator. We talked about identifying your target audience, coming in with the right mindset, knowing which platform you should start on, and keep it simple. Start on one platform, learn to master that, get better at creating content, and then when you're ready, you'll know that you can start taking your content to other platforms. Monetization is a goal of many content creators, but we caution you not to jump into content creation for the purpose of generating a side income. Enjoy the process, find ways to monetize through affiliate revenue or products that you can create, like ebooks. And if your content continues to resonate and you build trust with your audience, brand deals may be in your future as well. Thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.